Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning as we review the Staff and Student Wellness Guide that is part of the Reopening Educational School System Roadmap for Education Leaders from Department of Education. When you are going through the webinar, it is pre-recorded, so you cannot, we can't stop it for questions, but you can feel free to put questions in the question and answer box. The chat has been disabled, but again, we will permit questions in the question and answer, and we will have a question and answer session following this. My name is Dana Milakovic, and I am with the Department of Education. I'm the Mental Health and Alcohol and Other Drug Specialist, and I'm thrilled to be with you this morning, and we're going to move forward with our presentation. When we are providing consultation and technical assistance, and we think about creating an equitable school system and how we help schools navigate the 2020-2021 school year, it is important to take a look at all aspects of a school entity's functioning. If we think of those aspects as a roadmap, we can think about the pit stops as including establishing a team, exploring and selecting instructional delivery scenarios, supporting social and emotional wellness, focusing on effective instruction, communicating with stakeholders, and providing high-quality professional learning. Today, we are going to focus on how we help schools support social and emotional wellness. Staff and student wellness will continue to be vital to the 2020-2021 school year and paramount to offering an equitable educational experience for all. The contents of the Staff and Student Wellness Guide is designed to highlight 5 elements that should be considered as part of the LEA and school-level action planning and are aligned to wellness communication, staff wellness, student wellness, and supplemental student services. Aligning consultation and support services with these 5 elements can assist consultants and teams with improving educational and social-emotional outcomes for the districts they serve. The 5 elements are staff and student wellness communication plan, supporting staff in a tiered model, supporting students in a tiered model, enhancement of social and emotional wellness in a virtual environment, and alignment with supplemental student services. This guide was developed around an understanding that not all school entities are at the same place in terms of provision of social emotional learning and support, tiered system of support, or relationship building. The guide was structured to provide key considerations, questions to consider, and resources for each area. With the ongoing pandemic, plans may change throughout the 2020-2021 school year, and it is important to ensure open communication and a focus on wellness throughout the year. With research showing increased evidence that ongoing stress can have negative outcomes emotionally, academically, behaviorally, and neurocognitively, it is important that we support school entities as they move from a focus on instructional delivery planning to supporting the mental wellness of their school communities. This focus may come earlier in the year or have already started, or may be a topic that arises as the year continues to unfold. Focusing on psychological, emotional, and physical safety is one of the cornerstones of creating a safe, supportive school climate. Creating safe, equitable environments for students and staff will help mitigate the traumatic exposure experienced as a result of the pandemic. As we consult with school entities, it is important to remember that we need to focus on the psychological and emotional safety of not only our students, families, and staff, but our administrators as well. The roadmap offers resources to consider when determining effective methods of communication with stakeholders, universal practices to address social and emotional needs, creating equitable, welcoming, and safe learning environments, and conditions for monitoring and supporting identified staff and students demonstrating needs related to social and emotional and psychological supports. When we consider how to engage in consultation, it is important that we are all speaking the same language. Pennsylvania's definition of equity is as follows: that every student has access to the educational resources and rigor that they need at the right moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family background, and/or family income. It has been widely accepted and discussed throughout Pennsylvania and the nation that the current pandemic and racial unrest has resulted in exposure to trauma. It is important as we move forward in addressing staff and student wellness that we understand what the definition of trauma is, as well as the difference between trauma and trauma exposure. Pennsylvania's definition of trauma for the educational system is based on the PA School Code of 1949, Act 18 Update of 2019, and has three components. Component 1 is exposure to an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or threatening. But exposure is only part of the picture. Events do not determine outcome. If you think about people you know who may have experienced similar traumatic events but have had great differences in how they respond, you can see that it's important to remember that exposure to the event is not what determines trauma, but rather how the individual experiences that event. That is why components 2 and 3 are critical to understanding trauma. In order for trauma to have occurred, the impact of the event needs to be considered. A traumatic response has occurred when the event has lasting adverse impacts and creates significant difficulty in cognitive functioning and physical, social, emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being. It is important to remember that while we recognize all citizens of the Commonwealth have been exposed to traumatic events, not everyone will experience a traumatic reaction. The experience of trauma is dependent on how the individual experiences the events of the last few months and can be impacted by previous exposure to trauma, risk factors, availability of coping skills, resiliency factors, and availability and quality of social support. As we consult with school entities, it is important that we are taking a view of how individual staff and students are experiencing the pandemic, as well as how we can support the system as a whole. The checklist for staff and student wellness was developed to allow school entities to target what areas they need to focus on. Using the checklist with administrators can help you determine where to begin with supporting staff and student mental wellness. The communication plan portion of the checklist focuses on helping school entities focus on family engagement and community stakeholder involvement. The focus is on having transparent communication that includes frequent updates and provides information on upcoming dates, processes for students, families, and staff, and helping them use the resources in their building and communities to assist with development of individual resources, informational sheets, and plans. Thoughtful planning for the social and emotional wellness and support of staff is vital to the success of any school year, but in particular, the reopening and continuation of schools following the last unprecedented months and the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. Deliberate planning that addresses staff wellness and enhances staff's ability to engage in productive practices to benefit system, family, and student well-being. Anchoring this planning in the values of collaboration, mutuality, cultural sensitivity, and empowerment enhances the overall climate of the school entity. As we consult with schools, focusing on how we review resource allocation, focused on universal and secondary support systems, will be important. And focusing on what is present in a school entity, including their employee assistance program or health insurance providers who are providing resources, can help schools provide supports without adding additional financial or human staffing load. As students transition between virtual, in-person, and hybrid models of learning, it is important to assist schools in thinking about how they are preparing for student education and mental well-being. Schools who have traditionally been involved in a multi-tiered system of support or positive behavior intervention and support program may need to modify their PBIS or tiered program to address the needs of students in a virtual world. Schools who have not had supports in place historically may need technical assistance on how to view the needs of students and put parameters in place to address social and emotional wellness. The checklist gives some general ideas on what to focus on in terms of pre-COVID functioning, what data systems are in place to evaluate student need and assist in tiering, team development, and how to best use existing teams to support students, as well as procedural development for safety protocols that keep relationships in mind. This portion of the checklist assists school entities with identification of supports and alignment of supplemental supports that are present in school during extended school day, extended school year, or childcare. Identifying the supplemental programs present at a school and facilities communication with these programs and how you can facilitate LEA and administrative collaboration. Identifying key contact personnel for each supplemental program. When identifying key personnel, the needs of the family should be considered, which includes language preference, ability to access technology, and any other factors that may be influencing your school and community. Identifying school teams that can coordinate with after-school programming to enhance the social and emotional learning of students enrolled in the program, and ensuring that the coordinators of supplemental programs also receive the information parents are receiving can help facilitate communication and family engagement. Developing a communication plan that is rooted in transparency, collaboration, and voice can help develop a team focus for schools and improve family, staff, and community engagement. Key considerations are presented throughout the staff and student communication plan section. They focus on helping school entities think about how to engage families, how to communicate expectations and changes with a focus on continued relationship building and the goal of having school entities work together with staff, student voices, and family community voices. Communication focused on being transparent about the changes and the need for assistance, collaboration with families, and inclusion of family and student voice can assist school entities, students, staff, and families with navigating this uncertain time. As we focus on consultation with schools, it is important to assist them in thinking about the languages they have represented in their school and what modes of communication can best be utilized. Helping schools focus on how they will communicate that they are focused not only on physical, but also on emotional, social, and academic wellness and growth can promote feelings of inclusion and safety in families, students, and staff. Helping schools brainstorm ideas on what special events are coming up this year can increase optimism and hope. How they can celebrate successes as they occur can help continue those feelings, and a focus on how schools celebrate relationship building and partnership. Staff members may have experienced uncertainty, stress, or loss due to COVID-19 or racial unrest, and this will affect people differently. A tiered plan for wellness and mental health can support staff adjustment and prepare them to better support students when they return to school. The plan should include wellness strategies designed for all staff, as well as supports targeted to staff who may be experiencing elevated levels of stress or who self-report traumatic experiences. As schools consider how to support staff during this transitional year, it is important to also focus on how the decision-making process has affected administrative staff and plan supports for administrators. Practicing self-compassion and utilizing a support system can assist administrators with increasing their emotional and physical capacity to support staff, students, and families. Districts can also support this by ensuring boundaries which provide limits to becoming consumed with the demands of the administrative role and responsibilities and support a work-home balance. Engaging in self-care for administrators by intentionally scheduling check-ins with other administrators to process barriers and celebrate successes can enhance feelings of wellness. Addressing administrative self-care and wellness also promotes administrators' ability to support staff, students, and families. This can enhance the systematic self-care, which can include staff check-ins, quiet zones in the building, and intentional practices designed to enhance feelings of safety. These supports provide enhancements to personal self-care practices, which include any intentional action that is done by an individual to take care of their own mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. Self-care can involve any action during the day that helps maintain a feeling of calm, balance, and wellness, and can include things such as setting boundaries, movement breaks, self-advocacy, and mindfulness. As school entities develop plans for the 2020-2021 school year, plans supporting student wellness will be a critical component to promoting feelings of safety and supporting academic growth. Development of a safe, supportive environment with a focus on relationships is vital to supporting students as they return to school, whether that be through a hybrid model or through transitional periods during the year where they are in person. As school entities develop plans for the 2021 school year, plans supporting student wellness will be critical. As we consult with schools, it is important to help them focus on recognizing that family members, students, and staff have experienced differing levels of stress during the closure due to the pandemic and racial unrest. Recognizing that students have most likely spent more time on digital devices than prior to the pandemic and at younger ages. That family support in the use of technology ranges from implementing internet safety strategies and encouraging positive digital citizenship to the unmonitored use of technology. A focus on equitable access includes a focus on recognizing that during the school closures and the implementation of the continuity of education plans, students have had varying degrees of access to technology. We need to recognize that not all students participated in social and emotional activities when they were provided by teachers. For example, class meetings may have provided opportunities to share feelings, frustrations, concerns, and/or positive stories about their stay-at-home experience, and this may not have been experienced by all students. As we focus on staff training and professional learning, recognizing that not all teachers who work diligently to convert in-person classroom learning to remote learning have a background or professional development in social and emotional or trauma-informed practices. They may also need support on internet safety and digital citizenship. A tiered approach to student needs to prioritize staff capacity for prevention, connection, and intervention is important. For each tier, helping schools consider what staff support can be planned for and provided, which includes monitoring, student check-ins, mentoring, family check-ins, or a student assistance program referral. Considerations for tiering include support based on natural supports, which include relationships with individuals inside the building, peer relationships, social emotional programming, and supports offered by the school entity. When looking at providing universal supports, these are based on supportive relationships, social and emotional wellness, and emotional, behavioral, and physical safety. This can assist with reestablishing school routines and reduce stress responses in many students. Considerations for universal practices during the school year include emphasizing relationship building, reestablishing feelings of physical and emotional safety, and intentional social emotional learning content in the first week. As schools transition between differing models of education, it will be important to realize that you may need to reestablish these relationships and reestablish the feelings of physical and emotional safety several times throughout the school year. Helping school entities think about how they define tiers of support, even if they are not focused on a multi-tiered system of support, can help schools utilize the supports they have in place. Recognizing that tiering of students can be done even if a system-wide tiering is not in place will be important as we consult with school entities. The different tiers in place that can be considered include a universal, where no additional support is necessary and students are benefiting from the supports provided to all students. A moderate level of support. This includes students who need moderate levels of academic or emotional behavioral support, and these supports may include check-in groups, mentoring, identification of safe spaces, or student assistance program referral. Students with high level of supports have specific needs. These can include students with disabilities, English language learners, or students experiencing significant behavioral or academic needs. And students with urgent needs are students who are in critical distress and they require crisis or immediate triage. When we're consulting with schools, we can find that they tend to focus on the immediate supports in their building. Expanding that thinking to brainstorm around supplemental services can help school entities utilize comprehensive services provided to their students. Supplemental student services include services that provide students with additional academic, emotional, social, or learning supports that are provided outside of the regular school day or in conjunction with their educational staff. Considerations are also provided in this section for coordination with supplemental services provided during the school day through federal programming. Extended day, extended year, and child care services and coordination are also discussed. Coordinating services with all programs a student may be engaged in will increase a feeling of safety and support for both students and their families. Intentionally thinking about how you can use your district, federally funded program staff, and supplemental student service staff to support some of our most vulnerable students can reduce the demand on district administration and staff and more effectively support your students, families, and community. For many working families, childcare for school-age children is a critical support. School-age childcare is provided in varying ways throughout the Commonwealth. Coordinating and communicating decisions regarding school policy, access, and calendar of operations with childcare operating within the buildings and outside of the buildings is critical to supporting families of children who cannot be home unsupervised. As we move through the 2020-2021 school year, the thought at the forefront of parents, staff, and administrator minds is how we can best support our students in light of the unprecedented events of 2020 and the uncertainty moving forward into this entire school year. It is important as consultants that we help schools realize that the most important thing we can do is create positive, stable, safe, supportive relationships with youth. This continues to be the #1 proactive and protective factor for youth. A recent study was published regarding positive childhood experiences and adult mental and relational health. This study was unique in that it not only addressed positive childhood experiences, but it also looked at adverse childhood experiences. What was found in the study was that positive childhood experiences showed dose-response associations with adult mental health and relational health, even when you account for adverse childhood experiences. What this means is that fostering safe, stable, nurturing relationships for children affect outcomes later in life, and that the more positive childhood experiences a child has, the higher their chances of positive outcomes. As we think about the positive childhood experiences, several were school or school community related and include having at least 2 non-parent adults who take a genuine interest in their life, feeling supported by friends, feeling a sense of belonging at high school, and enjoying participating in community traditions. The additional positive childhood experiences involved family relationships and included felt able to talk to family about feelings, felt family stood by them during difficult times, felt safe and protected by adults in the home. As we move through the pandemic, changes brought about the changing landscape are a result of the virus as well as the social unrest. We have a unique opportunity right now to root our consultation and technical assistance through a view of relationships and how they can positively impact the effects later on in a child's life. For more information on the Staff and Student Wellness Guide, please visit Pennsylvania Department of Education's website or contact Dr. Milakovic. Contact information is provided on this slide. Thank you, everyone. We are now opening it up for questions and answers, and chat will be enabled during this period as well. If you would like to pose a question for us to answer, there is a Q&A box at the bottom, or you can choose the chat option. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions about this. I know that Dr. Holland Sims put the guide in the chat several times, so you can access it. And of course, we are always available for questions. If as you're using the guide or consulting with schools, you have questions that arise, we'll give it a few more minutes to make sure that there's no questions. And we appreciate your time with us this morning.
Dana, did you see the question in the chat that did pop up? It says, has this guide been pushed out to schools, administrations, or district admin?
The guides in general have been pushed out as part of the reopening plan. So I'm not sure how much this one exactly has. I'm gonna ask Dr. Smith if for that answer.
Good morning. Yeah, so all the guides on the roadmap were sent out individually as updates to the field. So all the LEAs should have been notified about this component of the roadmap opening. But I think that's a really good question, and one that post this series that we have with all of our IU, PaTTAN, and internal partners, that we will again send out another advertisement or splash about the roadmap, so that people are aware of the documents, and the webinars will also be added to this after these sessions. So we'll make sure that that gets out to the field. So thank you for that question.
Hi, Lisa. I see that you have a question about staff support. Do you want to put that in chat or in the Q&A? Not a problem at all. Lisa, we're going to actually unmute you so that you can ask your question live and you don't have to type it all out.
Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. My hands were feverishly typing, but I couldn't get it all out quick enough. I've heard some staff who are appreciative of like wellness efforts and attempts made to, maybe have training sessions together or, doing SEL and mindfulness activities with and for students, but they're also kind of going through them. But then, and some staff are appreciative of that, but I've also encountered, some buildings that I support in, and, I'm an outsider, so it's just kind of my experience watching this. I've also seen and heard staff who might say, I don't want to sit in a training. I don't want to go to another thing. Don't make me participate in this. I'm not joining that meeting. I just want, the time to do what I need to do because I'm feeling really overwhelmed. So sometimes it seems like the wellness efforts, it's a little split. Some people are appreciative and I don't know, some people feel better. For them, wellness is, I just need more time to myself. So how do you respond to that? Or what's just maybe a good way to, I guess, help faculty understand these opportunities or help districts, maybe gauge that? And how do you plan around that? Is it just optional things? Is it, do we plan wellness things that, some people can attend if they want, but others don't have to? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if I'm making sense, but just something I've seen and experienced so far in the last few weeks.
You are making sense, Lisa, and that's a great question. I think that it's important to remember that we all view mental wellness differently, and self-care is different for all of us. And when we really focus on self-care, we really need to think of it as any deliberate act that we do to make ourselves feel better during the day, or really to stabilize our emotional, spiritual, physical, or mental well-being. And that could be different for every single staff member in the building. So offering opportunities, but not requiring them, can really assist staff in feeling heard and that their voices are heard, but they have the opportunity to speak. You might have staff who really want to come and have conversations in a large setting and process that and talk about how they can do things differently. And then you have other staff who do that in small groups, or they have their own natural support systems, either inside the school or outside the school, and they don't want to use those opportunities. And it actually makes them feel less comfortable and like they feel like they have to share when they don't want to, and it increases their stress levels. And so I think one of the positives of this guide is focusing on the staff tiering. And the reason we focused on that was because it's unique for us to think about tiering staff just like we would tier students. But at a universal level, it's just about having that relationship with staff to know in this building, our staff doesn't really want to come, like they're very focused on getting time in academics, whereas in another building, it looks very different. And so having the opportunity that staff know there's someone they can talk to if they want to, or having social groups or check-in times, or open houses if you're having like you're virtual and you can have like Zoom open houses or Google Meet open houses where there's someone to talk to if you want to pop in and do that, but you're not required, can be really helpful to continue that relationship building and make staff feel heard and supported without feeling pressured to engage in those activities.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know that it can be individualized to certain buildings' needs, and that, offering that as an opportunity rather than like a forced, we're going to do this session together, I think will be helpful, knowing that that's supported, that this can be an individualized experience.
Yeah, I think one of the difficult things about consulting with districts is that every single district is different, and often the buildings are different based on their school and their community and their families. And so really tailoring our technical assistance to what meets the needs of that individual school community will be really important to make them feel that we're listening to them and that we're supporting them, and not that we're just telling them you have to do X, Y, or Z, but how do we support you in meeting the goals of your building?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you today? I know that Sarah has noted if you want to ask a live question, you can raise your hand and we will be able to unmute you and you can ask that live. We're going to give it about another 2 minutes, and if there are no other questions, we're going to end this for the webinar for today. We do really appreciate everyone joining, and again, we're here to support you. So if you have questions following this, please reach out and let us know, and I will put my contact information in the chat box as well.